Hi, it's Ann Lowe. And before we get started, I actually have two requests for you. Number one, I would like you to stay and watch this entire video. And number two, I'd like you to share it with everyone in your community, because I feel very strongly that by sharing this, when you see what this information is, by sharing this, I believe that we can save lives. And so I am absolutely honored to have somebody here today that is going to share about the rare type of cancer they have. And I would like to have you, if you don't mind, introduce yourself, give a little bit of your background and what you do now.
Hi, I am Bret Miller. I am the co-founder of the Male Breast Cancer Coalition. I am an 11-year survivor, and I reside here in Kansas City. I have a gorgeous, almost 2-year-old daughter and a lovely wife, and I am currently still at the country club that I've been at for coming on 20 years, running their pool and their ice rink that we have in their prospective seasons.
How exciting. That sounds like so much fun.
It is a lot of fun.
Especially the 2-year-old.
Yes, she is a ball of fun.
Yeah, I remember those days. It's been a long time, but I do remember those days. If you don't mind, share, when did you first notice that something wasn't right?
I would say the first time that I've noticed anything would be when I first found my lump, and that was when I was 17 years old. I was going into my senior year of high school, and I was just kind of sitting watching TV and just kind of did like one of those like stretch backs and was like, wait, what's that? It kind of was just kind of like, I don't know what that is, but kind of brushed it off there for a little while. But I had to get a physical before football started. So I went in to get the physical, and I pointed it out to the doctor, given the physical, and he was just kind of like, you're 17, you're a male, you're going through puberty and stuff. It's probably a calcium buildup. It'll dissipate and go away. There shouldn't be anything to worry about. So, I mean, just kind of brushed it off, and had it. It was there for about 7 years. I went to another doctor at the end of my senior year to get my shots for college, whatever the other vaccinations that you needed. And, I brought it up to him at that time, and it was a different doctor, and almost said the exact same thing. Calcium buildup, puberty, it'll dissipate, nothing to worry about. And so I went on about my way until I was 24, managing at the country club that I've been at and have health insurance. But I didn't have anything that made me feel like I needed to go to the doctor. Like, I didn't feel sick. I mean, I still had the lump, but I didn't feel sick. I was never sluggish or anything, that just red flags that were just like, hey, you should really go, until my parents were like, hey, do you still have that lump that you've had? And I was like, well, yeah, it's still there. So they just told me to go, they're like, you should probably go get a physical. When's the last time you had one? I go, when I was a senior in high school. And they were like, yeah, if you had health insurance, you're paying for it, why not go do it?
So the lump, was it hard? Was it small? Was it big? Was it squishy?
It was a hard lump. When they removed it, they said it was about the size of like a lima bean. So, I mean, of course, inside it feels, it's hard to describe how, big it is, but yeah, it felt like it was about that big. And the one thing that I tell everybody now, I didn't tell anybody at the time, until shortly after, my diagnosis, and I, read up some more about male breast cancer and everything. But for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years before my diagnosis, I was having, if I squeezed the nipple, I was having a yellow, orangish, or almost, red, bloodyish type discharge. But I thought, as a male, kind of try to jump to conclusions and just try to brush everything off and think that nothing's a big deal. I thought that it was the calcium buildup dissipating and going away, you know, just like the doctors told me, you know, because you hear something from a doctor and you want to believe them. You want to believe that that's the truth. You know, they're a doctor for a reason. They studied continuously to get to where they're at and everything, but it's still medicine and it's changing every day, every hour. And, so I essentially put my trust into the doctors and just thinking that's what it was, but eventually it wasn't. And I don't know if it was always cancerous or at some point, if it, became cancerous, it was, and none of the doctors have been able to kind of figure that out, pinpoint that and everything. But it was just, I don't fault any of the doctors. At what doctor is going to think a 17-year-old, let alone a male, with the lump is possible breast cancer? So I don't fault the doctors, but it was one of those things that, like, after I got diagnosed, that I realized, wow, I should have been a little bit more aware of it. But then again, there was no awareness out there for men. Nothing was talked about for men. Everything you see is all pink and is always women, 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 women. Rightfully so. More women are getting diagnosed than men are. I'm not saying that, but it's not a female's disease. It's a people's disease. And what needs to change. It's, including men in it, or just taking the verbiage out and just say, if you're a person diagnosed with breast cancer, we're here to help. All those medications and stuff, I think they're finally starting to say men in their advertising, like on the commercials, but it's only showing women. So you're not paying attention to it. It's just, the awareness needs to be out there. And that's what we've been working on since 2014, to build the awareness that men have breast too, that we can get breast cancer. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It is a rare one. They still say it's 1% of all breast cancer cases are males, which to me, I think is still very low. I think the number should be up a little bit. I just don't think that the reporting is correct, but we're here too, and we're getting diagnosed with the same thing that women are. And we just need the awareness and the research to be there as well, because when I was going through treatment, it was like, well, there's not a whole lot of information on the treatment for men, but it did work for women that were diagnosed with similar cancer that you had and stuff. So we're going to give this a shot.
Right. Well, and I really hope that us having this conversation, certainly amongst our community, will help spread the awareness, because I agree with you. It's like metastatic breast cancer. There's very little information about it. Less than 4% of the research money goes to that type of cancer. And, and with men, there's a bit of a stigma to it. So it's like a silent killer, because because there isn't enough information out there, by the time most men recognize that they have a problem, they are a late stage cancer. And that's my hope here, is that we can get this shared so that people are more aware of it and what they need to do. Tell me the journey to get your diagnosis. How did you actually find out you had cancer?
So I went to go get the physical. I went to a men's clinic. My dad was like, yeah, I've heard a lot of commercials for it. So I was like, cool, because I didn't have a primary care. So I went there and, set up an appointment and went through everything that they did, weight and did the few tests, and they did some blood work, and, the doctor, checked me out, and he was like, everything seems fine. You're testing great on everything. We'll let you know in about within the week when the blood work comes back, just to see if there's anything off. And, so other than that, have a good day. And he was pretty much at the door before I stopped him. I was like, hey, doc, 1 second, my parents would kill me if I didn't bring this up. I've had this lump under my, right nipple for, close to 7 years. And it was like the second I said lump and nipple, he closed the door and like turned right around, came right over and checked it. And he goes, let's get you set up for a sonogram, an ultrasound. It'll be actually right down the road from where we're at here. and he told me what it was. Oh yeah, I literally just drove past it getting here. So, I think within the week of the physical, I went into the the imaging center. I walked into the wrong building because the smaller building was like only for like MRIs. Never knew that. So the bigger medical building that has no name or anything on it, just their address, is what I walk into, and it's Suite 200. It's the women's clinic. That nobody told me that's where I was going. They just said Suite 200.
Right.
I don't know if they didn't want to tell me, and so but I walk in. I'm a few minutes late, but I'm greeted by name. I'm assuming because I'm the only male that was going to be going in there for an actual appointment, not to wait for somebody, because there's plenty of other males in the waiting room. So I, filled out the paperwork, the information, that they asked: health insurance, address, when was your last menstrual cycle, are you pregnant? That's the only form that they have. At the time, there was not a generic form or a form for males. We've actually worked with HCA Midwest, and they have started offering 3 different forms at their breast centers: one for males, one for females, and then one for just a gender neutral, just not asking anything like that. So that we've made a little stride in that, because of course it's kind of like, I can't answer any of these questions. I literally answered, my personal information. That was it. Couldn't answer any other questions that they had. I get brought to the back, but it's kind of like it's a staged brought back. Like, they're like, wait right here. We got women in the hallway right now. We got to let them go. And they were like, always clear, get them into the room, change. Here's your pink gown, wait, women in the hall, and it just kind of like a shuffling act and everything. I get so it's a personal thing in the back, but at the same time, I mean, it's awkward for me as just as much, just because I'm in a women's clinic getting checked for, at the time, no doctor at the time was saying anything about cancer, breast cancer or anything. It was just kind of going off of what I told them, that I was told that it was a calcium buildup. So that's the entire time, that's what I'm going off of. So I get back to get the ultrasound, and the nurse grabs the doctor that's there to make sure that what is being requested is on the scan and everything. And the doctor that walks in, a female doctor, looks at it, looks at me, screams, like, does like a triple take, and then just immediately asks, or recommends that we go down the hall and do a mammogram, just so I don't have to come back in and take any more time off work or waste my time, or anything along those lines. And I was just I mean, is that physically possible?
That would have been my first question, because I'm sitting here as you're saying this going, wait, how is that? Share that. How was that?
It was, I feel your pain, women. I feel the pain. That was not what I was expecting at all. And everybody was like, well, how did they do that? And I go, well, they brought me up to the machine, they grabbed around the breast area, they put their foot on the wall and to get some leverage and stuff, and they pulled back. I over exaggerate a little bit, but no, it was definitely not the best, but it was one of the better scan that showed the lump more and what the doctors needed to see. So I got the scan. My primary care set me up with a general surgeon at St. Joseph Medical Center. And I met with him, and he was like, yeah, based on what the scans are and how long you've had it, I still see it as a calcium, but it's the amount of time that you've had it is what worries me. So I just want to take it out. He was like, see these little white dots on here that show up, that's the calcium and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, okay, whatever. He goes, your health insurance is more than likely going to deny it the first time I put it through. So I'll write a letter and give them a call, and we'll do so. So we'll probably schedule this in about 2-3 weeks, after I get through all the red tape. And I was like, okay. And I mean, exactly what happened. He puts it through, he calls, and he's like, yeah, just giving you an update. The insurance deny it the first time. I've already put a call in, explain to him what we're doing, what the purpose of surgery, because insurance pretty much sees it as surgery on a male on their chest.
Elective.
Yeah, elective. We're not going to pay for this, so So he got it through, and I had the lump removed. It was, I mean, I was knocked out for it, but it feels like it was only like a 30-minute procedure, but I think it was a couple hours or so. But I had the lump removed on April 27th of 2010. I was back at work the next day. I mean, I probably could have gone back to work the same day, but it was just like, I got the day off. I'm going to take it. I was back at work the next day. And on April 28th, 2010 I was leaving work at the country club to go work at the bartender down at downtown. So I was leaving work at the country club. I literally just walked to my car, and I got the call from the doctor. Mind you, nothing still had been said, anything regarding breast cancer at all. But he called and he said the preliminary pathology reports have come back, and it is breast cancer. I haven't fully read the reports, but I'll get back to you in 3 to 5 days. And that was pretty much it.
I know when I received a call as well. And, when I heard the words, "I'm sorry, you have cancer," I had an out-of-body experience. What was it like for you to hear that? You're so young. It's so rare. What was going through your mind?
It was very similar to what you're describing, as well as I thought I was getting punked. I thought it was just kind of like a joke. I think the show was on at the time, or very popular in that time. But I sat there for a little bit, and I thought about it, and I was like, well, the lump's gone, so to me at the time, I'm thinking, well, the cancer's gone, so what more's entail? It can't be that bad. So I called my dad, and I let him know. I was like, hey, I'm heading downtown. It's going to be kind of busy. I won't have time for mom's 1,000 to 1 million questions that she's going to have that I don't have any answers to at all. I was like, but when I get home, we can discuss it then. And
can I bet that it didn't stop her?
No. 5 minutes go by and my mom's calling. I was like, gee, thanks, Dad. Thanks for holding out.
Yeah.
When I finally talked to him afterwards, he's like, I couldn't, because they work from home. Their office is in the house, and both their desks are 10 feet apart. And I guess he got off the phone and he kind of turned around, and my mom just looked at him. She goes, that was Bret, wasn't it? And she was like, what? And he told her. And we go in there, we're trying to collect all these questions before the appointment. And I was like, I got a question. I was like, how many of these surgeries, the mastectomies, have you performed on men before? And he goes, well, you'd be the first one. And I was just kind of like, okay, well, how many have you performed on women? He was like, oh, about a dozen. And it's just kind of like, I'm like, one, I don't want to be your guinea pig on this one. And two, he was just adamant, no matter what was going on, it was going to be a double mastectomy at the same time, no matter what. And
that was his plan.
That was his plan.
Okay.
And I was just like, it just, his bedside manner was just horrible. I thought he just came off so rude. And and I know that at times, for being a doctor, it can't be an easy job by any means, but you have to have some sympathy there, and he did not have that. So I asked for, I told him, I said, thank you for your time, but I feel that for what's best for me is getting a second opinion. So I tell everybody that I was extremely lucky. I still am lucky. My case got beeline to some of the top doctors in the area. It's like my nurse navigators asked if all these gave was just my age, that I was a male, and my diagnosis, would I be okay with my case being shared with some of the top doctors at like a round table that they had, monthly, weekly, whatever. I was like, if it's going to help, why not? So, we did that. We got hooked up with Dr. Lon McCroskey, who another general surgeon, but kind of specialized in breast cancer, and performed a mastectomy on countless women before. Actually performed the surgery on a dozen men before me. And upon meeting him, he he told, you know, we were talking, and he was kind of, you know, getting to know me, unlike the other doctor. And he was just like, you know, if you're willing to share your story, to speak out, your youth, your age, you know, that you're a male and everything, I think that you can reach others and you can help others out. Only if you're willing to do it. You know, he goes, but you know, if you got some questions, I could try to reach out to some of the men that I performed the surgeries on before, but most of them, as they told me, took time off work, had the surgery, recovered, and went back to work like nothing ever happened. And they don't talk about it. And just, you know, kind of hearing that, I just kind of like took it all in. And I think it was probably 3 or 4 days before the surgery is when I was just kind of like, you know, I'm going to take you up on that. And that's what we're going to do. And that's what we started. And that's, you know, we started out with the Bret Miller 1T Foundation, you know, a play on, you know, and the only play on it was because my mom said that the One Nipple Foundation was going to be inappropriate. So the Bret Miller 1T, I've always had 1T in my name, and now I have one tit and one nipple. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I love that.
We started with that. And, you know, and then we've evolved into the Male Breast Cancer Coalition. We still have the Bret Miller 1T Foundation, but, you know, the main goal is globally. And just making sure that men know that we're here. You have a voice and you have a support system. Dr. McCroskey did say that it was going to be a double mastectomy as well, but since he knew that I was getting ready, we were gearing up for pool season, it was going to be fairly busy. You know, I was busy at the time, but knowing that what I was going in, he was like, we can go in and we can do the right side right now. And then in a couple months, you know, we can come back and we can do the left side. So it doesn't have to be right this second. And so you're not down for an extra extended, you know, time, because, you know, I've got seasons. I have a couple months in between the summer and then the winter season where, you know, I could have done it. And so I was like, okay, well, that's a little more reassuring. So we scheduled the surgery. It was May 18th. And the morning of the surgery, he got calls from colleagues at MD Anderson and John Hopkins, and both said, do not treat women the same, or men the same as women. Only do the single mastectomy.
Really?
You know, yeah, they you know, something had changed, and or at least based on what mine, you know, my diagnosis was, which was barely stage 1. Kind of, it was on the side. There were no lymph node involvement. It was just ductal carcinoma in situ.
That's incredible, so, given how long you had
exactly.
the lump.
That's what I tell everybody, how lucky I was, because the Dr. McCroskey told my mom, as I was being wheeled into surgery, prepare for the worst. The amount of time that he's had this lump, it could be everywhere.
Did he say why in the past it has been typical to do double mastectomies in men?
No. I just think, I think it was more of, you know, with it being on one side, but then I think preventative, you know, case, you know, I think for a lot of women at the time, I mean, 2010, since it's crazy to see how medicine has evolved in treatments in 11 years. Because I mean, I know women that are being diagnosed with close to the same exact thing, if it's stage 0 or barely stage or close to stage 1, but like no lymph nodes, you can just get by with a lumpectomy now instead of the mastectomy, you know. And so it was just, I think it was just at the time, that's what the treatment was.
And has that evolved and changed? Do men get lumpectomies?
We've got a couple, 1 or 2 survivors at least that I know of that yes, just had the lump removed, or at least just elected to have the lump removed. Then doctor, you know, still went through with the surgery.
Now, one of the things that I know is that, you know, a large percentage of men with breast cancer have a BRCA positive gene. Were you tested for BRCA?
I was. My geneticist made sure of it, and I do not have the mutation.
Wow.
And my mom got tested probably one of us say 4 or 5 years ago with the more expanded gene test, because insurance would cover her. But since I've already had one genetic test in my lifetime, insurance won't ever pay for it again. So then it would be out of pocket, a couple $100 or $1,000, whatever it is. I know it was expensive at the time that my doctors pushed it through in 2010. I know it's come down in price, but they said that if they tested my mom and she had any mutations, then they could test me. They could retest me with their expanded field. But she didn't. There's been, we did a whole, I think my parents had to get together within 48 or 72 hours, like an entire family history. And it's a very good thing to have. And there's apps out there now. We're working with a few that you can have that, and you can share that with everybody in your family. And it's just kind of like, let's keep an updated family list, with your cousins and aunts and uncles, everything. Because
that's a fabulous idea.
And there's 12 or 13 female cousins on my mom's side that have had breast cancer, but there's still there's no definitive gene that they've been able to find or mark that tells us that we have. So
right. And that was my physician's, my oncologist, I thought as well. He's like, you have such a strong family history. You had the mastectomy. What was next?
So after the mastectomy, after they removed the lump, the lump they still had, on frozen or, on file, I guess is what you would say. They sent it out it was a new test at the time, Oncotype DX. So it was new at the time, but they still had a lot of research data. And in comparing my tumor at the genomic level, they said that if I did 4 rounds of chemotherapy followed by hormonotherapy, is that right? Yeah. That I would benefit, and that I could drop my chances of cancer coming back by 10% or so. The test that it does, it's science. I still haven't understood it. I mean, we took a tour of their lab and it was amazing, but I was just like, wow, this is way above my head. It said that I had a 22% chance of cancer coming back over a 10-year period, any cancer. So essentially of metastasis. Well,
and you're so young. That's the thing is, it's one thing if you're 80 years old being diagnosed with breast cancer, but it's completely different to be 24.
Yeah. So, they're like, if you do 4 rounds of chemotherapy followed by at least 5 years of tamoxifen, then your chances could be dropped by at least 10%. I was just like, well, as long as we can get closer to that 0 number for like nothing coming back, let's do it. I was like, like I said, the entire time I felt healthy. Nothing about anything along the lines made me think that like I'm sick. So even going through the 4 rounds of chemotherapy, I never got nauseous. I think I only had some of the body aches, only because I forgot to take the steroid pill before and after the treatment. And that was literally the only time. And the only other side effects is I lost my hair. So to me, that's what actually probably pissed me off the most out of everything, losing a nipple, whatever, was my hair, because it was hair and it was eyebrows and eyelashes.
The hair in your nose.
Yeah, it was everything.
Everything.
And that was the only thing that showed that I was sick. Like I didn't ever feel, like I said, I didn't ever feel sick. And I know the side effects of it, and I know it pisses a lot of patients off all the time as being the side effect of it. It's just, it's what it is. But to me, that's what really ticked me off the most, is because that actually made me, realize like, okay, wow, this is real. It wasn't just a surgery and lump removed and stuff. It's like, I'm going through this and stuff. But everybody, asked, or like, well, are you nervous about losing your hair? And I go, no, it'll grow back. I already lost a nipple, that ain't growing back. But, so the hair, it'll grow back. What if it grows back curly, dark and curly, like you never had it? And I was like, well, then I probably I look good bald, so I'll probably just keep it. So so I did the 4 rounds of chemotherapy, and by September 21st of 2010, I was done. It was my last round of chemo, and at that point, my doctor kind of gave me that all clear.
Tell me about your experience with the tamoxifen.
So the tamoxifen, I was actually only on for 30 days. And I did get the side effects, the hot flashes. My mom said I was moody, but then again, that's just my mom, and she just nags. And so to me, I didn't feel it, but she said that I was really moody towards her. Um, so they stopped the tamoxifen. I didn't like the hot flashes. I mean, I was working downtown, and it was a nice like fall night, and it was like maybe 65 or 70 degrees, just beautiful. I'm standing there working and stuff, and all of a sudden I just get this like rush of like warmth, and I was like, "What is going on?" I was like, "Guys, I gotta step outside for a second." So after I had that one, I was like, "I don't like this." So they took me off their tamoxifen, and they put me on Arimidex in a stroke.
And how are you doing with the Arimidex?
So I did it for 5 years, and honestly, if I had side effects, I never knew it. I never.
Nice.
I know some say that they have bone aches and just multiple different side effects, but I never. Nothing stood out to me like this is what's causing this.
Did you have any radiation? Was there conversation about radiation? Is that not typically done with men? Tell me about that.
Radiation, I even asked, I was like, well, does that mean I'm going to have to radiation? And they said no, because the lump, with what it was, the lump was gone, and that no lymph node involvement outside, from this area, there was no extra lymph nodes. So they said no. My doctor said that I would not benefit. It's the same way as I even asked my oncologist. I was like, why have you've never mentioned having a PET scan? And he goes, well, because that's just unneeded radiation. He goes, there's research out there that if some patients probably didn't need the PET scan, but it was ordered. And if it was just unneeded radiation that could then evolve and cause cancer. And I was just like, well, thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, well, thank you for that. Thank you for not just jumping right into it. So
yeah, it's amazing that some of the things that we do to try to prevent our cancer or find out more about our cancer can actually cause cancer. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. I think stigma is kind of the wrong word. There's such a silence around male breast cancer. Did anybody diminish your concerns because you were a male or treat you differently? I mean, it sounds like you had a little bit of a different treatment for the original ultrasound and the mammogram, but did you experience that in any other way?
To an extent, yeah. Upon my diagnosis, my mom she does some video work. 2 or 3 years before my diagnosis, she did a pro bono, very long, fundraiser video for the Young Survivors Coalition, at least the local chapter. So upon my diagnosis, she called them, the president of the chapter in Kansas City, and I'm trying not to put two major foundation on blast, but it's just the way that I was treated. She asked, she called them and asked and talked to them and said, yeah, my son, 24, is diagnosed with breast cancer. Is there anything that you guys can do to help? Like, just some like information and some guidance, because we just got hit by a bus and we don't know what to do. And essentially the quick response was, no, sorry, we're only for women. That was it. And and it's like, then you should say Women's Young Survivor Coalition. Young Survivors Coalition, you hear that and you're like, anybody that's young with cancer, right? No, it's at least not for us. So, and then she also called the president of the local chapter, Susan G. Komen, who she knew as well. And it was essentially, I mean, it was, sorry, we don't have anything on men right now. We're just focused on women. And, if there's anything else we can do, we'd love to help out. But, at this time we don't have anything. And it was just kind of like, wow, that was strike two. Luckily, we didn't get strike three. We had a home run with the American Cancer Society. And, they were like, we don't have a lot of information, but give us a day or two. We'll get something. We'll get right back to you guys. We want to help out, and they did. I mean, they sent us all this. They found as much information as they could, and then made it a point to start adding more information. They've included me on everything that they've done, all the races, all the local, the monthly or yearly races, the morning breakfasts that they do to kick off the race, and everything. They've always included me in it, asked me to be out there. I think I want to say it was 2 years, maybe 2012 or 2013, that I actually spoke at the beginning to kick off the race, and got everybody in the crowd to touch the boobies, because I was like, hey, if everybody can help me out, put your hands up, let's do little stretches and stuff. And I was like, put your hands right here. Thank you for checking yourself. And
that's awesome.
And so anything the American Cancer Society asks of, I always do. We're kind of coming around to the other two foundations. It's not the foundation as a whole. It's still the affiliates. It's the local chapters, because we know we have so many men that have been helped by their Komen affiliates, or Young Survivors Coalition. It's changed, but that was my experience at the beginning, and that's where I kind of got pushed off. And same thing, people were like, well, you're welcome to come to our group, our little support group. A few women that I met along the way, and I was just kind of like, I would feel like a big outsider sitting in. And because there's a lot of personal that gets talked about in there, and I didn't want to make anybody else feel uncomfortable. And that was kind of the lines of same thing with my doctor, and that's why we wanted to start the coalition, or the foundation, to speak out so that men had another place to go, because it's still personal for men as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm preaching to the choir. There's not a whole lot I can say here. I know there are so many similarities between female breast cancer and male breast cancer. What are some of the differences?
Well, for men, I mean, in general, it just, you get diagnosed with breast cancer, and most of the men just kind of go, that's not possible, because men think of breast as actual boobs, like extending out from their chest, and that's not the case. And that's what we've been working on for so long, and we've made a lot of progress with a lot of men. We still have a handful of them out there that just, instead of saying breast cancer, describe it as chest cancer, which is totally wrong, because chest cancer can be multiple different cancers. So that's one, is the diagnosis of breast cancer. And hearing the word breast cancer, it's emasculating, and you're just like, that's not, no. And because the second you think breast cancer, you think pink, and that's it. And that's what's wrong with a lot of it, just because you think pink and you just think women, and that's it. And then men, it feels like we get pushed behind.
Well, it's kind of natural. When you think of breast cancer, you think of boobs, and when you think of boobs, you think of women. And
no,
so
it's still natural and stuff, and that's been my goal. And then all the other men as well, to just try to change the stigma. And the reason why I said it's a people's disease, it's a person's disease, and I got that from Michael Singer. He's an amazing advocate for us and for anybody with breast cancer, and especially in the metastatic communities as well. Big advocate of that. He lost his sister to metastatic, and in her diagnosis is how he found his lump. And because I was on the Katie Kirk show in 2013, and it was me being on that show, a national show. I was in his neck of the woods. He's in the Bronx, and so I was up in New York and everything. And he, after the show aired and stuff, he immediately called us, and he told us, he was like, he was diagnosed around the same time that I was, but he always said that, you know, if anybody asked or anything, he said it was just cancer, and he wouldn't talk about it. But because he saw me on there with Richard Roundtree, who ironically enough was the first person that I ever heard had male breast cancer, and that was in like the early 2000s. And I think my mom was watching like Entertainment Tonight or something, and he was finally out speaking about it. That Michael, you know, he saw that, and he was just like, wow, if this kid's out there, you know, able to speak about breast cancer, you know, being a male and stuff, then what the hell am I doing? And now I can't get the guy to shut up.
Did you feel like you had to advocate more for yourself because you had an unusual type of cancer, or was your medical team supportive?
I will say that, I'll repeat it again, I was extremely lucky. I feel like I had a medical team that was extremely supportive, because I feel like they were just as shocked as I was as a 24-year-old male that just got diagnosed with breast cancer. So it's just kind of one of those things. I mean, it's like you're sitting there watching a show, Grey's Anatomy, and it's just, you get this diagnosis just comes out of nowhere, and they have to figure out why. So I feel like I was extremely lucky on the sense of the medical team, my nurse navigators, my surgeon, my doctors, oncologists, as well as my support system of my parents, my mom in particular, but family and friends and everything. And you need to have that, and you have to have family. You need that support behind it. I mean, you can't go into this by yourself thinking that you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go in, I'm going to ask all these questions and write it down. Because you're going to ask a question, and the doctor's going to come out with the answer, and you're just going to be shocked, and you didn't write anything down. And you need somebody with you at all times. And I was lucky enough to have that. So I will say that there are a lot that aren't as lucky, but you need to speak up, ask all the questions. You're not going to, if you offend a doctor, well, then you need to find another doctor on a question that you're asking. What
was it like to tell your friends? Was it hard? Was it embarrassing? Tell me about that.
It was more, to me, it felt more embarrassing to say it. Coming out saying, hey, I have breast cancer. You know, it was at the time, everything was new. It was still a lot of information to take and process. And I was trying to find back on, I told a handful of friends in person, but for the masses and stuff, it was Facebook, and it was actually right around this time in 2010. I think it was May 6th, because something just popped up on memories the other day, of somebody commenting on my wall around that time. And I was like, oh yeah, I must have, it's that time of the year again. But I told everybody, and, and the only reason I finally was comfortable in saying, speaking out about it, and just letting everybody know outside of just immediate family, was I did meet with a plastic surgeon and just exploring my options. I didn't know. I mean,
right. You might have wanted to be a double D.
Yeah. Why not? Thanks for saying that. Nobody's ever said that to me.
Oh, good. An original.
I'm like thinking, why didn't I do that?
Exactly.
But, just at least to, fill in the area that it was, the cave. But, I met with the plastic surgeon. He was one of the top plastic surgeons in the area. and he came recommended from my surgeon, and it was just kind of a info session. It was asking questions and what was his thoughts, and is it something they can do? Because I mean, as young as I was, I'm going to be losing a nipple or two, and I worked around a pool, and what was I going to, it was just, a thousand things going through my head. And in meeting with that plastic surgeon, he was just like, I've never performed a surgery like this. I'm not saying that I can't. I can definitely, do my research and study it and know what to do, but you would be the first person I'd be performing a surgery on. And it was just kind of like taking that in. I was just like, once again, I mean, I would be a guinea pig for another surgeon, and do I really want that? And it was like the next day, I was just like, I'm not doing anything. I'm having the surgery. I'm keeping the scar, and this is what I'm talking about. This is a talking point. This is how I can have that impact on some people that may think that when I tell them that I have breast cancer, that they're like, that's not possible. You're a male. I can be like, well, here you go. If I had reconstructive and a nipple tattooed and everything back on, like, they don't see that. They would see it upon further inspection of going, oh yeah, I guess so. But not having that done, just having the scar, it kind of that impact, and that's what I felt was what was going to start the change.
So I know, even in my own experience, body image can be an issue. And have you experienced that, or what can you tell me you've learned about that in your community?
Yeah, a little bit at the beginning. I was shy on trying to think about it, but upon just kind of really embracing it, I just kind of was like, you know what, I don't really care anymore. I think it was my older brother, hearing that I was possibly gonna have to have the double mastectomy at some point. It was before the surgery. He goes, well, at least you'll have a permanent Halloween costume for the rest of your life. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, Conehead. He goes, they didn't have nipples. And I was like, oh,
that's awesome.
It was upon that and everything. I was just kind of like, you know what? I was like, let's embrace it. And so him cracking that joke, and my younger brother coming up with the the slogan of guys don't be afraid to touch yourself.
I love that.
We never followed up with it, but we talked about it. So we have the t-shirts and everything, but the next clothing lineup, we're going to be boxers with the little handprints down there for to branch out for help out with testicular cancer. But no, along the ways it was humor. It was cracking jokes, making fun of myself, being a unanip, and whatever else you wanted to say that helped along the way is with everybody, the diagnosis, the treatments, and everything. Because if I was willing to crack a joke about it, then it made anybody else at ease, and it made them more willing to ask a question without thinking, oh, is this going to upset him, or is he going to be, how's he going to react to this and everything? But ask a question that maybe I would not have thought of, and maybe think about it more and have a different answer. And then it was just kind of like, embrace it. So it was the lift up the shirt for the shock value to show them and stuff. That's why I got the tattoo. So yeah, at first, body image was just kind of, I was cautious about it, but I think it kind of went over very quickly, like within a few days. Like I was just like, I don't care anymore. I mean, if somebody is offended by it or whatnot, well, okay, then I'm sorry, but move along, get out of here. Or people along the ways have asked, like, well, when you told your friends that, you're diagnosed with breast cancer, did you lose any friends over it? And I was like, what kind of question is that? I was like, if I got diagnosed with cancer and I lost friends because of my diagnosis, I was like, well, clearly I don't care about them. They didn't care about me, so move along. So,
well, it's interesting because I have experienced that.
Really?
Where I had a group of friends, and I don't know. I don't know what the thought process was to lose one or two of those.
Exactly. It's selfish on their part. Okay, so it was when my mom called the president at the time of the Komen chapter in Kansas City and said that, it was her son that was diagnosed with breast cancer, and we just don't have a whole lot of information. And is there anything that they can do? One of her responses was, well, Susan didn't have a brother. And my mom just goes, what the fuck does that have to do with anything?
I know that, for a lot of women, a breast cancer diagnosis can affect their intimacy. Is that what you hear? Did you experience it? Do you hear that from other men?
And from an intimacy standpoint, I don't really hear that from a lot of men. Most have not asked me really. I can totally understand it from a female standpoint, and I totally get it. For me, no, it wasn't at all. I mean, if you're gonna love me or be with me, you're gonna love me as I am, and if not, then see you later. But when you bring you're bringing that up, and it was interesting seeing it. The show Million Little Things. Have you watched that?
I haven't watched it, but I know the book. Yeah.
So Gary on there, one of the characters on it, played by James Roday, is a male breast cancer survivor, and there was a scene in there that he was getting close to, or he was hooking up with somebody because he was kind of working a support group system. I guess I never thought about that. But no, he was and they were going at it, and the female tries to take his shirt off and kind of stops, and he was just like, whoa, so for me, no, but it can be.
If somebody had told me 6 years ago that I would be the co-founder of a venture firm that invests only in cancer innovations, that I would have written a book, and that I would be hosting something like this, I would have told them they were crazy. Now, you had a physician ask you to become an advocate, but not everybody becomes an advocate. Not everybody does this. What was the impetus for you to say yes?
Throughout my entire life, I've always been the helping kind. I always remember being younger, helping out, my mom, my grandma, just whatever I can do to lend a helping hand. And, when hearing from the physician, about the possibility of helping others and stuff, I was just like, well, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's do it. If I can help one other person, then that would be great. I think it was a male who was diagnosed probably 3 months after me. And I mean, I think it was in his 50s or 60s or so. And he was just like, I love what you're doing. You've spoken on so many news channels and this and that. And thank you. And just all these questions and stuff. And I was just like, wow, this is really fulfilling, and that's where it was knowing that helping others just get through it. Just any questions. Like, I know I can't help financially, and I can't, I'm not your doctor or anything, but I can be there as a support system and, as a friend, because that's what a lot of people need during those times.
Yeah. And, I can completely relate to that, because this is the most fulfilling thing I do, is conversations like this. So thank you for sharing that. I want to go back to a question, and you may not have the answer to this, but with women that have the BRCA gene, there are surgeries that are recommended prophylactically. For men, is that the same, or there's no correlation to then have additional surgeries?
To my knowledge, there's no correlation. So yeah, there was no talks about any prophylactic surgeries. There was talks though about banking sperm because of the chemotherapy, and Being 24, they didn't know how my body would react to the chemo and so on. I'm fine with speaking about it. I'm not fine when my mom is the one that blurts it out, like yells it in the room and everything. Like, yeah, he wanted to go get sperm banked and everything. It's like, gee, thanks, mom. But I was, that's what they did. I think I had it frozen for about close to 10 years. I think it was last year that I finally was like, okay, I'm tired of paying for it. Clearly I don't need it. I got a little one running around. But it was one of those things that was brought up that I didn't even think about.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you stole the question, because that's what I asked the young cancer females is, did you do something to protect your fertility?
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, some of the things that you do to protect your fertility, or if you have a fertility issue, that's estrogen and progesterone. And, if you have a cancer that's fueled by those, you can make your cancer worse. So it's kind of a hard decision, I would think.
Yeah. I can't imagine what everything that women have to go through, being diagnosed with breast cancer.
I think we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but, my coping mechanism was humor. I had to find humor in everything because sometimes it wasn't a whole lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Was that your coping mechanism, or did you have others?
No, humor was mine. Like I said, I worked down at a bar. We were known as the party bar. It was Cancun and KC was the tagline. So we had a lot of theme parties and everything. I know, like, one of them, I was the one nipple strong man, and I had like an eye tattooed, or not tattooed, but painted on, over the scar and everything. I think for 1 year for Halloween, I think I was dressed up in like camo gear or whatnot, and just cut up the shirt and put blood right here and just said that I got it shot off by a bullet. Just things like that. It was just, it helped lighten the mood. Yeah, humor was definitely, what the coping mechanism for sure.
Well, and I think that, when we spoke about it a little bit earlier, I think that me finding things funny made it easier for who I was with, mm-hmm. because it made it easier for them to, ask me questions, or it just put them at ease. Even though it was my coping mechanism, it really was beneficial to everybody around me.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I know it's a serious issue going on, but Patch Adams, I mean, we're watching that movie with Robin Williams and stuff, like the humor in it just helped get through it.
How do you feel that this diagnosis has impacted you as a person?
I feel that it's made me open my eyes a little more and see a little more around me, and realize that there are a lot more men that are being diagnosed with this, but we're just not getting the recognition that we need, and that's why I felt that I needed to try to change that.
Has it changed your goals in life, or your trajectory of where you thought you were going compared to where you are now?
Definitely it's changed. I mean, ultimately we want to, I figured at this point I would just be, punching the clock, working 9 to 5, just work, family, the American dream. We're getting there. We're not where we're at, where I would have hoped, but I think we'll get there eventually. I want us to be the Komen to women, as or in that aspect, but for men, to have that financial assistance, to have that research there for the men. And if we don't get that there as the coalition, hopefully we're getting some of the bigger guns out there doing that, the all-encompassing, bringing it together as men and women, as people, and not just focusing on just one, but bringing, getting that research and that the financial help and assistance there. I mean, we're one hell of a support group. We have the assistance, we have the knowledge, from at least all the men that have gone through it, but we have so many doctors that are volunteering their time. Dr. Ben Park's one of them. He's one of our biggest supporters, and he will answer any of our men's questions at any hour of the day, it seems. I mean, you can give him a call, shoot him an email, a text, whatever, and he responds. And, he may not be the one that can provide you the treatment, but he always will call your doctor and ask all these questions, all the medical terms that you don't understand, and ask and be like, well, he may benefit from actually doing this. So, we have that. We have those volunteers. We have a lot of heart. We just don't have the financial assistance that we would like to have, to assist others that may need it. We've had a few along the ways that, they were like, well, I can't afford this, I can't afford that. And we do everything we can, but we don't have that. I mean, we've had men that were at first died, their insurance denied them their metastatic treatment because it was for women and he was a male. And through the perseverance and the letters and the social media and everything, from my mom, Sherry, and others with the coalition, we made a change. He got his treatment, and it's since changed. And like I said, we've made some change, and Pfizer's coming along, and it's Ibrance, I believe, is in their commercial, and it actually says men or women diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, although it doesn't show any men in there as like portrayed as one of the patients, but it's progress, and we're getting there.
Well, and anything that we can do to help, we're the same way. We're new, but I think that at least sharing the word helps.
Mm-hmm. That's all we ask. I mean, a donation's great. It helps us keep the servers going. It helps us get more shirts, because anytime we get new men, we send them out a little care package. We get them a shirt, we get them a hat, we send them a wristband. We get them a handful of things just so they can be comfortable with their diagnosis and know that they aren't alone in it. Because there's so many men that have not physically met another survivor because of where they're at, and because they don't feel like there's any other men around that get diagnosed, but there probably is, and they're just too embarrassed to talk about it.
Do you do any type of virtual support group?
Oh, yes. I feel, as much as I try, I'm not as vocal as I should be in some of those. I would like to be, but with work and young one, and just, in general, some of our older men, a lot of them are retired, so they have, some time on their hand. But Ron Rappaport is one of our survivors, and he, as well as a couple others, started doing it. We just call it an open mic night, once a month, virtual shoot the shit group, talk about your diagnosis and just whatever else in general. And I know I get on those as many times as I can, but work schedule doesn't help. It's always in the evening. But yeah, we have that. We have a monthly meeting for the coalition in general, trying to have a different speaker or doctor on there, a different group on there to kind of share what they're doing and how they can help us out. But yeah, we've done that. We've got, since 2014, we've essentially kind of had a small conference. 2017 was our official first conference here in Kansas City that we did. And so we've done one yearly. This past year, everything was virtual. This year is going to be virtual as well, just because, as compromises most of our men are, we don't want to risk anything. So we should be back to in person in 2022. We'll be back here in Kansas City. It's in April. And we get a lot of doctors that will pay on their own dime and come out if they're not local and speak to us, or we'll do it virtually and just kind of talk to us about where they're at in medicine and what can help us men out and along those ways. So
what should men look for?
Probably number one would be looking for a lump. More than likely, it's going for men. It's almost right around the nipple area. But being aware of what is considered your breast tissue. And I don't think I don't think any men really know that, minus physicians. But there are a lot of women that also don't know the proper. On the Male Breast Cancer Coalition .org website, we do have a video. I'm your model of how to do a proper breast self-exam. It's, I know many may think that like, oh, it's never going to happen to me or whatnot, but if you're a male and I know when you're younger, you're doing, you're told to do more of testicular checks. Getting older, it's rare as you get older to, come down, age-wise with testicular cancer, but it's just, if you're doing a monthly check on that, do a monthly check on your breast as well. So it's a lump, it's a discharge from the nipple. Number two, I think, was what I read afterwards, that I was like, wow, okay, I probably should have said something a little bit earlier. An inverted nipple, discoloration in the skin, redness, rash, anything that just seems, if you're your own best advocate, if you look down, something doesn't look right, go to a doctor. If they tell you no, go get a second opinion. Don't stop until the answer that you get puts you at ease and makes you understand, realize that, okay, it is nothing, or it is something, the doctor can finally diagnose you with something. I was a Ford Warrior in Pink model of courage in 2012 and 2013. And I had one of the female models with me, who was also from the Kansas City area. And she was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And her lump was all the way up here in her collarbone. And she went through 2 to 3 different doctors. And it was on that last doctor when that doctor said, yeah, it's nothing. She told me, she's like, I sat there on the table and I was like, I am not leaving this room until you diagnose me with something, because I feel this right here, and there is something wrong. And she was right. So it's be your own best advocate,
Male breast cancer is typically diagnosed in somebody in their 60s. So not only did you have a rare cancer, but you were a rare entity in that cancer. What would you like to say to young men, maybe in their late teens, early 20s?
I would say, know your body and be cautious of what you're putting in your body, because a lot of those protein drinks, and it was never stated that's what caused it, but going throughout high school, you're all protein drinks and lift weights and get big and everything, but a lot of the protein drinks have a lot of soy filler, and soy is estrogen, and that can raise your numbers, and that can give you a false alarm of, if I've had 2 people I know along my journey that have kind of freaked out, because they're bigger guys and everything too, but they're like, I felt a lump behind my nipple and so on. We got them in with the doctor and they were lucky and it was nothing, but it's just, it can, just be aware of what you're putting in your body. Doctors still don't know how I was diagnosed with it, what caused it. I want to think that some of it was environmental. I want to say, growing up in the 90s and stuff, GMOs and not eating, eating organic is good, is good. So do that. But, I still remember being younger and seeing chicken breasts that were like this big, like enormous. And it's just like, that's not normal. So the hormones and antibiotics and all that stuff that we're putting in, I think that had probably something to do with it. Then again, I'm not a doctor.
Right, exactly. I say
Uh,
that same thing. I'm not a doctor,
but
but
that's what I could probably attribute to. It's just, knowing what you're putting in your body, be your own best advocate, and, everything in moderation. Still have fun. Don't sit here and just start thinking, oh, if I'm doing that, I'm going to die. If I'm doing that, well, you're going to have a horrible life. Have fun, enjoy your life, but just be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, excellent. And how frequently should somebody self-examine?
Once a month. Pick one date every month and do it every, May 1st. Do it then. June 1st. Do it
Great.
then. It's just you have to keep a schedule on it to make sure that nothing happens. Why my aunt has told me that I helped save her life. She had a mammogram checkup in August. I don't remember the years and stuff, but I think it was like August or September. She had a checkup, and then by June or July, she felt a lump and she was diagnosed with stage 3. She's still here. She had all the treatments and everything, but it was it's that big of a change that quickly. So monthly exams, know your body, check it.
Anything that you would recommend for prevention, or do you do anything for prevention of a recurrence?
Like I said, I think it's just eating healthy and exercise. Some bodies just are prone to it. I mean, there's just I believe it was one of the doctors that said, well, everybody has cancerous cells in your body. It's just what's going to trigger that cancer. So it's knowing what you're eating, you're putting in your body, what you're breathing in. It's just a multitude of things. So yeah, I do my best. I've been slacking lately. I definitely think that the pandemic has hurt a lot of people in a lot of ways, but it's just find the happiness, but in your life, and what's gonna help you get by. But yeah, it's eating healthy and exercise, and just kind of keep along with that. I think that's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, that's great advice for people that don't have cancer. Mm-hmm. So, and it's interesting, as I've interviewed physicians, they're more and more believing that about 90% of all cancers are caused by environment. And so, when we look at, like you mentioned, the large chicken breasts, and that's why I believe we're going to see and we are already seeing much younger people being diagnosed with cancer because of the preservatives in the food, because of the hormones in the food. And, we're seeing more and more young women, you're an example of people that are being diagnosed at such a young age, which is so unusual. So that's really terrific advice. So because male breast cancer kind of comes with a stigma. And like I said earlier, it's really not stigma. It is, but it's more silence. What can we do to be more inclusive of male breast cancer?
To be more inclusive, to be more welcoming. I mean, I know that some men feel that, if they're diagnosed with it, that they're not going to be welcomed by by women groups, or kind of be, pushed away because this is just for women only. It's just being more welcoming, and understanding that it's a difficult thing that I'm going through as well. I understand that you as a female, because breast, essentially in a way, in men's eyes, define women, but I still got diagnosed with a women's disease, or as perceived as a women's disease. I don't know what to do with this, but the help and assistance and guidance along the way. So it's just being welcoming, and not pushing away. I've seen huge change since my diagnosis. Like I tell everybody, I was like 11 years, 10 years, whatever. It's changed a lot in treatments and everything. So we're making progress, and it seems slow, but it's getting there. So,
lastly, what would you like to leave people with?
Honestly, probably just, our slogans that we say, for the Male Breast Cancer Coalition of, I'll get my shirt in there. Men have breasts too. And as the back says, guys, don't be afraid to touch yourself. Do your monthly exams. And, as my mom always says, together we will change the world. And I do firmly believe that now, that strength in numbers is going to help build the awareness for men and get the inclusiveness to either, like I said, add men to everything or change it to a people's disease. If you're a person diagnosed with breast cancer, we're here to help.
Well, Bret, I can't thank you enough for all the information you've provided. This has been amazing to talk with you. And, to our community, I'm going to ask you, please share this with every male in your life. Share it on social media, share it anywhere that you can, because I really truly believe that by sharing this, we can save lives. And it's just that important to share. So thank you so much, Bret.
Thank you for having me. It was a joy.